Hi guys, and welcome to Freckle Finance, and today my video is going to be on my honeymoon. Now this is not going to be as densely financial as some of my other videos are, or how much I plan my videos to be, but I still do feel like our honeymoon fits with our frugal lifestyle. We did not do what I would consider to be a traditional honeymoon, and it was really awesome. I'm going to do a separate video. It's probably going to be posted next week on just our experience with Airbnb, because we feel it's a more frugal option than hotels. So and it's great because I actually took videos of some of the Airbnbs so you can get the tour and kind of what makes them a bit different. So for our honeymoon, the first day we landed in Moncton, New Brunswick, and so we flew out there and we got a rental car, and that's where we started our honeymoon. And we stayed at, that was probably my favorite Airbnb, but like I said, I'm going to get into that later. And the town is really French, which I guess we didn't really expect. And the lights were, if anyone's familiar with Quebec, they have black lights that are like sideways, and I think they're funny. My husband was really excited because it reminded him of home, because that's what the Quebec lights are like. And yeah, the town was really French, like impressively bilingual. It seemed to me, maybe that's just my perspective as a non-French speaker, that everyone could speak both French and English, and I just thought that was so cool. And they kind of have, once again, this is my opinion, I'm not actually sure how accurate this is, to me it sounded like they had an accent that was in between French or in between the Quebec French and an English accent, whether they spoke French or English. We got some really good cheese curds there, which is an event for us. Now my husband wants me to find cheese curd making stuff online for cheap. If anyone knows that can ship to Toronto cheap, because I can find the stuff cheap online, but the shipping charges are crazy. So if anyone knows, like, I'm actually totally interested in making cheese curds now, because you cannot get good cheese curds here. But yeah, true Canadians, right? All into the cheese curds. So Moncton wasn't really like supposed to be a main highlight, but we ended up going to a hockey game, which is really cool because it's a good way to experience the local culture, which was that basically all the announcements were in English, but pretty much all the conversation going on around me was in French. And also, it was actually a really good hockey game. They were really aggressive. I'm kind of one of those people who likes my hockey games where they're getting into fights and stuff, even though I totally hate that stuff in real life. I love it in hockey. And yeah, there was probably like 3 fights that broke out in that game. I don't remember exactly, but it was also just, they were playing really hard. So that was good. It was really weird though, because it's like mid-September, or on the later end of mid-September that we went, and it was so hot out. We were in t-shirts boiling while watching a hockey game, and I've never experienced that before. Usually a hockey arena is very cold, but they don't have air conditioning, and it's hot outside. So yeah, it was just really hot in the arena, and that was different. But it was also great to experience just the local stuff. The next day we woke up and we went to the farmer's market where we got our cheese curds, and I also bought some strawberry rhubarb jam, which I've never heard of, and I'm really excited. It was small enough to take on my carry-on luggage, because that would have sucked if I couldn't bring it home. That's basically what we brought as souvenirs. You know, I bought strawberry rhubarb jam that I've been eating for breakfast. And then from there we left to a town called Shediac. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's got like the world's biggest fake lobster structure, which is kind of cool. I'm not that into seafood, but just the drive itself is very nice. And then we headed towards PEI, and we were so lucky because they were closing the Confederation Bridge for the Terry Fox run, which was the very next day. So it's good that we didn't even know, but we planned our trip around that, so that was great. We got to PEI and we stayed at another really great Airbnb. We were in Charlottetown for most of the first day. We went to the Anne of Green Gables musicals, and you guys don't know this about me, but like, I used to do musicals. I'm not like professional quality. I always got chorus. I'm way too much stage fright when it comes to singing to actually sing solo. But I used to do musicals and I absolutely loved it. So also, I have redhead pride, so of course I'm gonna love an Anne of Green Gables love story musical. So that was basically the highlight of that day. The next day we just did a coastal drive, and it's hard to explain. We did an intercoastal drive, but it's really hard to explain just how like beautiful PEI is. We were joking that like we should just buy a house and come out here, because first of all, the houses are really very much inexpensive compared to Toronto, and it's just so beautiful. And apparently they have really harsh winters though, which is why it's probably not as populated as that place deserves to be. We went and stopped at a place called Cape Tryon. I'm not sure if I'll put in the video. We did take a video there, but the wind, it was so windy. Like, it's kind of an irritating video to watch, but basically it was my husband's first time ever stepping foot in the ocean. So for him, that was a big thing. And there was also this really nice, I would say nice from afar lighthouse. The lighthouse looks pretty run down once you get near it. And that was just a local told us that it was a very nice area, not considered touristy, but yeah. And one thing that was really cool about PEI is their soil is like a reddish orangey color. I don't really know how to describe the color anymore because it's not fresh in my memory, but it's just, I guess it's considered red, and I guess it's from high levels of iron that's been oxidizing, so like their soil is rusting, but it is so pretty. And during our coastal drive, we stopped at a lot of Anna Green Gables places. We're out of season, so basically other than Anna Green Gables and looking at the beautiful scenery that is all around, there wasn't much else to do. We also thought there'd be a restaurant during the coastal drive open. There was not a single one, so I think we skipped lunch that day and had dinner. And then it started raining, so we went back to our Airbnb. I may have some of these days, by the way, confused, but you know, as long as it's in the same area, it all happened there. We ended up going to a drive-in, and I love drive-ins. It was kind of like, I grew up with a drive-in in my city, so I'm used to them, but this one was much more retro looking, that it was really cool, but there was like nobody there. But it was still pretty cool to go to a drive-in, and we were driving back and the moon was like a crescent, and it was orange, and it was on the horizon, and it was just so cool. Like, we don't have the moon that low in this area, or if we do, I don't know, maybe we just don't have time to appreciate it in this area, so maybe it is. And then we got back to our Airbnb, and we were outside and we were looking at the stars, and we actually we took a long exposure with this very camera that is taking this video. I think it was a 30-second exposure, if anyone knows anything about cameras, and it just showed up the lights, and you can see the Milky Way, which I was pretty sure that I saw with my naked eye before that photo, and then I was like, what, that's the Milky Way, oh my gosh. Like, there's no lights around really, so you could really see the stars, which obviously in a large city like Toronto you can't see. So from there we drove, I believe, all the way to Halifax. We did do some pit stops for some random hikes in the area. We went on quite a lot of hikes, random. We saw like a woodpecker at one point who was pecking away at something, but we went to Halifax. Nothing particularly wrong with Halifax. It's just we were on this really like casual, relaxing, beautiful scenery, and Halifax is kind of like a big city, and also the roads will really stress you out because they bend and stuff, and we're just not used to it. Kind of reminded me a bit of like a little mini San Francisco, which I've never actually been to, but it's got like the bridge and everything like San Francisco. But they have a lot of good history there. Well, sorry, I shouldn't say good history. The Titanic survivors were buried in Halifax, and they have the biggest, I can't remember the word, but they rescued stuff from the ocean from the Titanic. They have the biggest display of that in their museum there, and the Halifax explosion. So obviously these aren't actually good histories, but you know, important ones to remember and learn about and appreciate. So yeah, we looked at that kind of stuff. We also got to see a cruise boat up close, which we've never seen before, and they are huge. Oh my goodness. From there, we went on our Bay of Fundy. That's when the Bay of Fundy started after that. So we ended up driving basically into the middle of nowhere, where we stayed at our next Airbnb. I would say we were probably in a town that maybe had 30 houses. Sorry, it would be considered a hamlet of 30 houses. And it was so quiet. You could hear like I guess the tide was coming in, and you could like hear it. And crickets and everything, and it was very peaceful. It was a long drive in the middle of nowhere though. And from there, the next morning we got up and we went a half an hour further in the middle of nowhere to forget the name of it, but we went kayaking and it was at this point. I'm sorry, I can't remember the name. I'll try to look it up and put it below right here, if I can remember it. I should say also prior to that, we went to the Five Islands National Park, and it's kind of along the same road if anyone is familiar. Five Islands was really cool too. We do have a video from there. We just quickly stopped in there as we just didn't want to drive for too long at a time. So we went kayaking at Advocate Harbor, but there's specifically kayaking was at a specific national park, which is what I can't remember the name of. But it's like Santiago or something. And that was so cool. And my husband said it was either one of or the coolest thing he has ever done. It was a 4-hour kayak, you know, not the typical thing someone does on their honeymoon. And it's just cliff sides everywhere, and you know, there's kind of caves in some areas and stuff like that. And we stopped at the halfway point at 2 hours in. We were also in a group and we had tandem canoes, so it wasn't like this strenuous trip. Like anyone could, I wouldn't say anyone, but anyone of like average fitness could go there and do this kayak trip because you have someone else helping you. And they provided a full like homemade lunch. Apparently she even grew the lettuce in her gardens beforehand. She made the cookies homemade. She made some beer bread. Like it was really cool. And then like we stopped and our kayaks were in one spot, and we go to return into the water, and there's like this huge, like it was only probably about an hour that we stopped for, and very significant difference in the water line. I still can't believe how much of a tide that the Bay of Fundy gets. It's crazy. So then we canoed back, and there was all these places that we were able to canoe through. Like there'd be like this big structure, and then the mountainside, or I'm not sure if it's considered a mountain or not. You could kayak through there before, and you couldn't get anywhere near there afterwards. So it was really cool to see the change in scenery between like the high and the low tide. And I don't even think it was at the lowest tide, but I think it still showed the main significant difference. And then we went back and hiked that area. And then because we were literally in the middle of nowhere, kind of, and they have one restaurant in the area and it was closed for a function. It was great that we had an Airbnb because we actually had to make our dinner that night. We had to go to, it was kind of like a gas station / grocery store. We had to stop there, and we picked up some food that we cooked in their oven there. And then the next day we went to the most iconic spot of the Bay of Fundy, which is Hopewell Cape. And we actually walked the entire length of all the coves, and there was these formations that you had to walk over. I guess if you wanted to wait it out until the tide got low enough, you could walk around it. We didn't. We walked all the way over it. And yeah, there was some cool caves you could walk through and these crevices, and I'm really into that stuff. So yeah, it's very beautiful out there. Hopefully I will post some pictures at the end of this of some of that stuff. I'm not going to post too many because we had probably originally like thousands of photos from this trip. And so as for cost, I estimate that the whole trip cost us about $2,600. So, I mean, for a road trip, it's a little on the expensive side, but really people tend to spend more on their honeymoon, and we weren't comfortable with doing that. We saw a lot of stuff. We did a lot of stuff, and the thing is that we didn't spend a lot of money on food. Most of the places didn't even have the option to go to a fancy restaurant, so that completely stops you from spending a lot of money on food. However, the restaurants there are more expensive than they are in Toronto. Toronto has pretty competitive prices on restaurants, so you'll find like a nice-ish looking restaurant that seems to you like it would be like a sit-down family restaurant price. Not the case there. Their prices were more expensive. But we didn't plan food very well, so we often didn't even have lunch because there was no place nearby to eat. So that saved some money. But mostly after that, like we didn't really buy souvenirs. If you want to count a second souvenir, we did, because we flew in and out of Moncton, we did go back to that market because it was a Saturday again, and we bought more cheese curds and brought them back on the plane. So there are 2 souvenirs, and obviously photos are always great souvenirs. So yeah, there was a whole thing, $2,600, so not not a cheap trip, but not like a crazy expensive trip. We had looked at other options. Like we really, really want to go to Peru at some point, and we were looking at it and we're like, it was more than double basically to go to Peru. So we stayed in Canada, and we could have gone cheaper. Obviously, if we owned our own car, we wouldn't have had to pay for the car rental. And I don't know if it's still it wasn't even peak season, but the car rental was very expensive. The gas was not. Luckily, we got like we purposely didn't get a car that was heavy on the gas because we didn't want to spend a lot of money on gas. And also flying out there costs a bit of money, but keep in mind that when you fly out to a place, it saves you some of your time, so you have more time to enjoy your vacation. Remember that frugalness is not always about getting the cheapest option, but the best option. So we did spend a bit more money to have more time on our vacation. But yeah, it was a really cool trip, and I'm really glad we went out there. I can't believe how different out east is from here. And like, I've been to BC, and the scenery is different, but the way people act and stuff like that, like it's very similar to here, possibly because they have big cities. But yeah, it was completely different over there, and it was so calm and relaxing. And yeah, I have this little fantasy of moving out there one day, but I don't really want to be there for winter because apparently it's like like roads don't even have access to, and they get completely torn up by the ice or something. Yeah, so that was my honeymoon, and it was really great. So the next video is going to be on my experience with Airbnbs. So stay tuned, because if you've never used an Airbnb, maybe this will convince you to use it, or maybe it's going to convince you it's not for you. But definitely watch next week for that video. Have a good day. Bye.